Hello and welcome to the third episode of your Manchester United Fix with myself, Ben Ibsen, and my good friend, Brad Cox. Now, for the first time ever in our short podcasting history, every single Manchester United team played a game of football this week. If you want to include the first team, you might say that they played two games with that training match against Burnley on Tuesday. But from the under-16s right up to the women's team, they all played a game of football, which gives us plenty to get our noses into and get chatting about as well. But there's no better place to start than the game that happened only a matter of hours ago. Brad, give me your thoughts on that 1-1 draw with Southampton.
Yeah, it was an interesting game to say the least because it looked like a Manchester United that was struggling at times, that was lacking creativity, but then it seemed to come all together in the second half for about a brief 15-20 minute spell, which is when United managed to find an equaliser through Mason Greenwood. But other than that spell, they were below par on Sunday. But with probably the standout player being yet again Paul Pogba. He was at it once again. He got his 5th assist of the year already in 2 games' time. I mean that speaks for itself really. And I believe it's halfway to his best tally ever in the Premier League, which is obviously 10. If any of you aren't very good at maths like myself, had to look that one up. But in terms of the result, I think a lot of the players and the staff will definitely see it as 2 points dropped for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's side. And I tweeted it about 80 minutes throughout the game. I was saying that this is the sort of result that Manchester United fans will probably look back on in April or May and think that's 2 points dropped. And then that's who knows where those 2 points could have got them to, but we'll see what happens in April or May. But yeah, it was definitely 2 points dropped, and they weren't up to their usual standards that they set very highly last weekend against Leeds.
Well, that's the question that lingers over a fixture such as this one, because Southampton, you don't know where they're going to be come the end of the season. They might be in the relegation zone. They might have just avoided that. But if they are one of them teams that get relegated and you play on early on in the season, then it is seen as 2 points dropped. Whereas usually people ask the question, at what point of a season do you start to get good knowledge of where the teams are at? And a few people say, the first international break or just before Christmas, you get a good knowledge of what every level of every single team. But 2 games into a season and you play a team like that where you should be going there and picking up the points. Or even though we know it's not easy going there, as the Cavani masterclass saved us last time. But early on in the season, you don't know where the team's at, what levels they're going to be playing at this season. You think it is 2 points dropped, and they could have been 6 points in 2 games after the fantastic start against Leeds.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting that you mentioned that actually, because this Southampton side, probably very unlikely to, but they could be fighting for a Champions League spot come April or May, and it might look like a good point on the road. You never know. You just never know in the footballing world, especially.
Is that you being optimistic?
It could be. Maybe I'm a Saints supporter deep down in my heart. I've found a love for the Saints and optimism for them. Who knows? But maybe it could be a good point on the road for Manchester United. You never know. But one thing it does do is keep their unbeaten away record going. I mean, you've got the stats. Go on, tell us what it is then.
27 successive away game
in the Premier League.
I believe is an English footballing record. Yeah, top flight English football record, which is incredible. But I understand it's a great run, but should have maybe won today's game. I know, you can take positives out of every situation. It is fantastic. Wolves next up, away again. They'll look to extend that once more, but it depends on the sort of situation you're in, really. If it's middle of the season and you're on this run, sort of like City did last year, where you're on that run and every little bit of positivity helps this run to pick up points. When you're at the beginning of a season, you just want to be winning all your games anyway. It doesn't really matter if, you're dropping points there, but you're still unbeaten. I do understand that, and I do understand it makes good reading for the stats and for the Manchester United fans. But at the end of the day, 2 games into a season, 6 points looks a lot better than 4 does. And gaps can start to create themselves very, very early on. And it's about keeping up with the pack or being ahead of the pack. And I think, although it is a very good statistic, it's something that they're going to have to continue throughout the season and hopefully turn these draws into wins.
Yeah, exactly. And Solskjaer said last season when the unbeaten run was picking up some momentum. He was like, yeah, but it doesn't matter. We drew to West Bromwich Albion 1-1 today, so he knows it doesn't matter, and he knows he would definitely prefer 6 points rather than 4. Who wouldn't? But I thought today there was almost a reoccurring sign that Manchester United is still not quite at it. You know, we've seen other results this weekend. Liverpool easing past Burnley at home. City cruising past Norwich. And I fully do. Despite what I said earlier about Saints almost, fighting for the Champions League, there was a bit of a joke in there. But I do have them down to be relegated. So if you were to look at that in May, and they are relegated, and United only took a point away from home against them, then you'd probably say that's not a very good point at all. And Norwich will be favourites to go down as well, and City are putting 5 past them. So it is a kind of a little bit of a sign as to what Manchester United should be doing. They should be putting more past this Saints defence that's lost Vestergaard, who's gone to Leicester. He was a key player for them. And they were also without Danny Ings, but they still managed to cause Manchester United some issues today. So it's not like it was a bad Saints side. Armstrong had a very impressive game, and at times, the link-up play between James Ward-Prowse and Armstrong, it looked like they could have even pushed for 3 points themselves. Towards the end of the game, it was looking more like that the Southampton team were going to come away with 3 points rather than Manchester United, which is something you wouldn't have expected to say before the game, would you?
Absolutely not, but I'm pretty sure the best chance of the game did fall to Southampton, but it was a good save by De Gea. I mean, it wasn't the best strike, but then again, it works both ways. But I think there's one thing, we briefly touched this on last week's podcast when we said beat Leeds 5-1, but it's the way that Leeds play. They come out at you, they attack, they create gaps where you can exploit. You've got the likes of Bruno, Pogba, they're going to find them gaps with the passes. Whereas today, Southampton are a lot more of a solid side, set in their shape, good, hard to break down, and I think that is where we're going to struggle throughout the season. We might play Chelsea, City, Liverpool, might get points against them, and the games that we struggle with the Watford's away, Southampton's away, if that makes sense, the smaller teams that are hard to break down. But anyway, before we talk any more about that, I want to talk about their goal rather than ours. And was it a foul or not? Because I personally missed this. I was too busy going to get Gary Pallister's Chinese at Old Trafford, and I came back and I heard people outside the superstore saying, it's 1-0, it's 1-0. And I was like, surely not. Got back, saw the replays of what would have been a foul, maybe in some cases, obviously not given. They went on. A fortunate goal on their behalf. But I want to get your thoughts on that.
I thought it was a very interesting one because I think personally Fernandes has gone down too easily. He's been easily shrugged off the ball, and he's got his back to where he's supposed to be turning and starting an attack, but he kind of just keeps going towards his own goal in a way, and he's inviting the pressure. He's the phrase looking for a foul. He's drawing in a foul. He is drawing one in, and it basically determines whether you think drawing in a foul is an actual foul or not, or whether you're asking for it. I think that's what it comes down to. So based off of my personal opinion on what a foul is in football, I would say no, Bruno Fernandes was not fouled. But based off going off consistency of what referees give week in, week out, or to goalkeepers, for example, barely a touch on a goalkeeper, that's a foul. If you were to do that to a goalkeeper from a floating ball into the box, that's a foul every single day. So I think on a consistent basis, I think the referee should have given a foul. But what determines a foul is very interesting, and that's up to personal opinion. So I personally believe that Fernandes was looking for a foul. He's gone down too easily, and then, like Ole Gunnar Solskjaer said in his press conference afterwards, his players went to sleep at the back, and they were made to pay.
I'd say one thing, that if Bruno, he was looking for the foul, it's where he had the ball in that type of the pitch. I think you're going to do that to release the pressure. If he'd have got his body in front of the ball a little bit more and made him come through, I can't remember who the player was who potentially fouled him, but if he'd have come through him a little bit more, he had his body turned towards the goal like that, he would have come through him and won the free kick. But yeah, like I said, a little bit too easy. And then you go, and yeah, it was a fortunate goal. Fred got his toe on it, and it ended up misjudging day and went in, but that's football, isn't it? We went up the other end. Greenwood again gets the equaliser for us after a lovely bit of play from Pogba and Bruno again, you must say. falls to Greenwood, takes his chance. He's probably not going to complain about how it went in, because it went in. Didn't look the best shot, but he's not complaining.
No, he won't be complaining at all. And Greenwood's now got 2 in 2, so his confidence will be sky high. And when you look at the how he's playing this campaign compared to the start he had to last year's campaign, then you can say he's a different player altogether. He's playing with confidence. He looks stronger, and I think maybe pulling out of the England squad for the Euros is one of the best decisions he's ever had, and potentially Manchester United may have ever had, because it's given him that time to get a bit of weight behind him, have a nice break, because he played a lot of football last year, and I know he's young, and I know there's Pedri on Barcelona who's played a ridiculous amount of games in so and so days, but these players do need a bit of a rest at times, and I think it came at the right time for Mason Greenwood over the summer, and I think he played really well today in a side that didn't look too confident going forward. And we'll get on to more about it, but I just don't think many attackers will be pulling him out of the team if he's to continue this type of form, and that includes Edinson Cavani or Jadon Sancho or Marcus Rashford.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm pretty sure that it's 8 in his last 10 Premier League games for Greenwood, which is absolutely fantastic. And I think you hit the nail on the head saying that it takes a lot for a player to stand there and say, look, I don't want to represent my country at this tournament. I want to focus on myself, have a good pre-season, rest my legs whilst train my legs, and hit the ground running, which is exactly what he has done. From one England international to a French international, Paul Pogba touched on his 5 assists, but how good again was he today?
Yeah, he was excellent, and like you said, the five assists in 2 games, but he also almost had a goal, almost found the winner late on. With that left-footed strike across McCarthy and goal, and that was close. That was similar actually. You'd have almost actually wished for that to be Greenwood on the ball, because that's a similar position that Greenwood scored from against Leeds. So I thought that was interesting actually. But Pogba nearly squeezed it into the bottom right corner, which would have just set those away fans on fire. Like, they were right behind that goal, so they would have seen it coming at them. Obviously, away fans first time watching their team in a Premier League game for over 500 days, I think it is now. So they would have enjoyed that had it gone in. But it wasn't meant to be for Man United. But going back to Pogba's performance, he showed glimpses of last week's performance. And at times he looked like the only one that was kind of carrying the team forward at times. I think Bruno had a bit of an off day at the office, as did Maguire actually. I think we should highlight Maguire's performance, because it's very, very rare that you see a skipper like Harry Maguire have an off day at the office, and that's what he did have. He was the one who gave the ball away for Armstrong to run in, and should have slotted it past De Gea for all the 3 points for Saints. And De Gea definitely, saved his skipper from some abuse, because that would have been quite the capitulation at the back there if that was to go in.
Yeah, I agree with you there. To be fair, I think that in the second half especially, things just got a little bit sloppy. We got the goal, we were on top, and then things started getting a bit sloppy. Passes were a bit too relaxed, they were going out of play, they weren't on target, and that gets on top of you. And especially, like you mentioned, with fans in the stadiums, the one thing that did make me laugh is obviously Southampton were yet another team to be affected by this ticketing nightmare when fans are trying to access stadiums. But if any Manchester United fans were impacted by that, then I would love to hear it. Not to hear the story, but just to hear from you and give us your opinion on what happened if you missed the game or anything like that. Now, there's one thing that I just want to address. 2 games into the season, this is the 3rd episode of your Manchester United Fix. So we are at the start of the season, and I just don't want to dismiss that a win and a draw is a bad start. But is this ideal? If you look at the fixtures that Manchester United were given at the start of the season, you'd look at that and you'd think, right, that's a great opportunity to have a fantastic start, hit the ground running, get 10 in the bag already. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think many fans online would have been saying, "Oh, that should be 6 wins from 6," but that never happens really, unless you are in one of those unbelievable runs of form, in the form of your life. That very, very rarely happens. But like you said, they've got some favourable fixtures coming up. Wolves will not be as easy as it looks on paper. Wolves will be a very tough game. They played very, very well against Tottenham Hotspur this afternoon, but they Spurs managed to come away there with a 1-0 victory, but only because of a penalty. Remember, and even that had a bit of controversy behind it. So Wolves won't be a blowout, to say the least. And then it's Newcastle at home, followed by Aston Villa at home. And Aston Villa have caused Manchester United some big problems in recent years at Old Trafford. Most notably and most recently the Jack Grealish screamer in front of the Stretford end, which probably convinced quite a few United fans that United should be going all out for him. But obviously he's joined Manchester City now, so they haven't got to worry about him against Aston Villa in a few weeks' time. But there was another one also last year. It was New Year's Day against Villa, which were Manchester United scraped past the villains 2-1, I think it was, on New Year's Day, and even that had a Eric Bailly 94th minute kung fu flying kick off the line to save that victory. So Villa will be a tough fixture, and I think probably Newcastle over the next few games will be the one where United will kind of smell blood and will want to put a few past Steve Bruce's side.
So what do you make of that in terms of the start for Ollie? Does it make a difference? Because 2 games in, personally, from my point of view, it doesn't make a difference whether you're or not you're going to go and win the league. If you lose your first 2, then it's a different situation. But a win and a draw is almost as good as 2 wins.
Yeah, I would say it's not something I think we're probably analysing it a bit too much for the first 2 games, to be honest, but that's what we have to do, isn't it? I mean, it just depends, because we've seen Premier Leagues be won by 1 or 2 points, and if that's the goal for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's side, then which it should be and it will be, to win the Premier League, and if that's an achievable goal, then they might need those extra 2 points coming into the final stretch in May. But yeah, like you said, if there was 2 losses and you had 0 points on the board, I mean, it's already, the best example of that is Arsenal. Arsenal have now lost 2 of their first 2, and considering they've spent the most in the entire transfer window, then that's looking very bad. And there was boos at half-time for Mikel Arteta's side this afternoon. I don't think the Old Trafford faithful would be booing Ole Gunnar Solskjaer had he lost his second game of the season after 2 tough teams, for Arsenal to play. I think maybe Arteta's getting a bit too much stick there. But he played the opening game of the season. The Arsenal was the first team to play on that Friday night. They played a Brentford side that hadn't been in the Premier League for 75 years. Not to mention, fans hadn't seen their new stadium. They hadn't seen their team in a football match for over a year and a half at full capacity. He had a COVID just surging through the squad, and then he had to face a Chelsea side that splashed £400 million in the past 3 years, and they've just added Romelu Lukaku, and Ben White's out with COVID, or not COVID, or an illness. So I don't think he's had it very easily, and these Arsenal fans are straight onto Arteta's back. I think it's very, very tough and harsh, to say the least. But they sit 19th, and that's what the fans will look at, but they won't listen to anything I've just said. They will hear the words, they are second bottom in the Premier League. That is what they will hear.
Well, despite your deep sadness for Arsenal position that they have landed themselves in, I think you hit the nail on the head yet again when you said 2 games in. I think we're analysing this way too much. And it is the beginning of a new season, as we've seen with the other Manchester United teams. The women's team, they've been up in Scotland doing their pre-season journey. They beat Rangers 5-0 on Thursday. 5-0. Captain Zellum with 2 amazing goals, 1 set piece and 1 from outside the area. And they're looking really, really strong under Matt this season. And obviously Tuesday was the Burnley game. I actually managed to catch the second half of that. And I saw Garner Kovar, Hannibal and Phil Jones came on, to be fair, in that second half. And it was, again, interesting. And one thing that made me think from that, obviously you can't watch games like that and think, oh, it's interesting how they're playing there, looking at Burnley, oh, they don't play like that on a Saturday. It was none of that. It was more just get out there, go run for 60 minutes, and then I'll bring you off. Get your fitness up. And it sort of showed where the bar is at. To have that, obviously there's not been much of a pre-season, so to kind of continue that pre-season once the season has started is a very interesting concept. It isn't sort of like, let's take it easy now, count on the games on the weekend. Champions League starts soon. Cup midweek fixtures are going to continue soon. They're setting a bar now, saying, look, we're playing 2 games a week. It's not going to begin then and carry on. It's going to end when it did in May, June, and pick up in August, September. And they're going to continue that all the way through, which I think is quite an important step if you're going to be relying on playing midweek football all the way through the season.
Yeah, it's playing midweek football, whether you're playing on a Wednesday and a Saturday, or in some cases a Thursday, a Sunday. You've got, and the squad depth has to be there, and has to be there for the manager to be able to pick different players, because realistically, if you're playing Tuesday, Saturday, Wednesday, then that's a lot of fixtures, a lot of playing time in a short period of time. So it's not the best situation to be in. But at the same time, you want to be in these competitions. Manchester United are one of the biggest clubs in the world. They want to be playing on the main stage in the Champions League week in, week out, and they want to get a lot further than they did last year. And I think next week's pod might actually be very interesting. I think the Champions League draws this week, is it, or is that next week? I'm not too sure. We'll have to check on that, because that'll be an interesting one because then we can start to analyse who Manchester United are playing in the Champions League. Because I think Solskjaer, there'll be some pressure on him to get out of the group stage and make it to at least the quarterfinals this year. I think that'll be one of his targets.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that the draw is usually before the first international break, which is, of course, in a couple of weeks' time. And I'm going to say it now. I've been saying it to a few people who have been working with, or whether I've just been watching the football with them. I do think United are going to go far in the Champions League. I'm even going to say that they're going to win the Champions League, because compared to the Premier League, it doesn't take the best team in the competition to win it. But if you're the best team on the day, you will win it. So I'm just going to leave that there, let that settle, let that seed and let that blossom nicely. But let's move on to the other action this weekend. Obviously on Friday, the under-23s were down at Stamford Bridge playing Chelsea, which ended in a 1-1 draw, which was very interesting, because if you watch the game, Chelsea had a man sent off in the 60th minute, and you thought from that point onwards, United are going to capitalise here. No, Chelsea then went on to score a penalty in the 74th minute, but United were saved by Alvaro Fernandez, who'd played an absolute blinder all night. Went on, took 2 players on into the area, an absolute bullet across the keeper into the right post netting. I couldn't believe it. He deserved that goal so much. But moving on to the Saturday morning, under-18s played Liverpool in the second game of their under-18s Premier League North. Unfortunately, it was quite a heavy defeat. They lost 5-0 after losing 3-0 to City the week before. But it's a new team, it's a young team, it's under a new management, and I think that they're just going to have to wait and play some easy fixtures and find their feet in that league, whereas the Liverpool side they were playing, they were beasts. They didn't look like they were 18. They looked older than I was stood watching. I couldn't believe it. So I saw a few people sort of getting on their backs, giving them stick on Twitter and the likes of that, but I think they're a young side, and they've got to develop. A lot of them 15, 16 schoolboys, so give them time. You can't get on these kids' backs when they're 15, 16. What good does that do?
No, especially, I mean, like you said, some of them are giants. I was reporting for Wolves Academy on Saturday, and I think it was the under-18s as well, and they are, some of them just ginormous. Because you're like, I don't know whether it's similar for you when you're reporting on United's Academy, but you're right up on the pitch, aren't you? You are so close. You're literally on the touchline, and you can, when they run straight past you, you're like, wow, like, you're 15. There's no way. Like, you are looking right up towards them, aren't you? And they'll have full-grown beards as well. Like, I didn't have a bit of facial hair at 15. Did you have any? I didn't have any. Did you?
I can't even go now. I'm 22. But it's not even that. It's not as if everyone's huge or anything like that. There are people there who are 16 and they look 16.
Yeah, if not younger.
They maybe don't look 16. But the size difference between them both, it's like when Lukaku was 12, and there's that picture of him playing when he was 12 or however old he was, with all his other teammates who look about 5 years younger than him at the time. It is literally like there was a couple of Liverpool players that were so tall, and they just pull you off the ball every time they got it. But there was a few new starters in there, to be fair. Manny Norcat, I've not seen him many times this season or last season. Logan Pye, Fredrickson. There was quite a few players there that were obviously new to that standard of football, and it'll take a bit of time. It's Manchester United, they're a good team, under good management, they know what they're doing.
What about with the academy? Do you notice that they try and follow a sort of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer type of playing style? Like,
It's very interesting. I'd say the under-18s is a bit of a step below that at the moment, replicating what the first team is producing. But one thing that really caught my mind is that Matt Skinner, the new manager of Manchester United women's team, has been in touch with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer quite a lot. And I think that's brilliant. I saw that in an interview, Mark had said, I sent him an email late on a Friday night, and Ole replied to him within 20 minutes. And he said it's something he didn't expect, but he said it's nice to be able to share ideas between the different teams. And that's obviously the same as the 23s. If they're going to pick players out of there, then they're going to go up. So that obviously it's very tight-knit, and that's what you want with your club. You want to see it tight-knit, ideas being shared across them all. And especially, I know you mentioned the academy, but I see it more in the women's. The football that they play is incredible. And you might see sometimes that they've conceded a few goals, but that'll be because of the football they are playing. Every time they play out from the back, and it's so good to see. Some of the players that they've got in there are built for that. Zellum is so good at receiving the ball at her feet and turning with it and picking out that pass first time. And it's absolutely incredible to see. But especially with the academy, I'd say more the under-23s, they stick to playing that style of football. Whereas the under-18s, maybe under Travis, they will play that football. Last season, I know that it's more just about proving yourself as a player, playing that football, but also proving yourself. You're still a young age group. You've still got to show what you've got. Whereas the under-23s is a lot more about the style of football you're being played, what you've got to play. If you can't come and fit into that style of football, then you'll go out and do other things elsewhere. But yeah, very good question. But I think the under-18s is just that step below at the moment. So next up for the 23s, they've obviously got Manchester City at home, which is one hell of a game for them, as City won the league last year, and well, they're going to be difficult to knock off the perch this season. And the under-18s, of course, are away at Leeds United, so it doesn't get any easier for them either. And then you look at the first team away at Wolves. We know that one as well. So that's the end of my academy/women's review. Back to Brad. Brad, next week, Wolves away. What we thinking?
Yeah, Wolves away. It's always an interesting one going to Molineux. You know, I think it got voted the worst away section in the country. It is one of the hardest places to get an atmosphere going as an away supporter. I've actually been in the away section on a Norwich City away day. Don't tell me what. Don't ask me why. But I was a part of the Daniel Farke's green and yellow army one day, and we were watching Wolves, and it did not get it going. I mean, it didn't help that they got battered 3-0, but you just can't make an atmosphere because they spread you out across one of the. As you see it on TV, the far side, the bottom tier is the away end, and you spread across the width of the pitch, so you're so far away from each other. You know how like noise seems to like travel high and it rises like. So when away, like the Etihad or Old Trafford, you know, you kind of like higher together, you go up together rather than being spread. Yeah, the Wolves ground is terrible for getting away noise going. But back to football, that you know, Wolves playing a 3-4-3. That'll mainly be a 5 against Manchester United, I think, and that'll be very difficult for United to break down. We saw it on Sunday against Southampton, where United did struggle at times to break them down. So I think it will at times be difficult against Wolves. But prediction-wise, I still think United should be coming away from Molineux with 3 points, and anything less than that is another disappointing result. And one thing that they failed to do this weekend was build on the great performance against Leeds. Like, that will all be forgotten now. That super performance, and they'll want to get rid of the Saints' performance, the Saints' results, and get the ball rolling again with 3 points against Wolves next weekend.
Absolutely, I'm going to predict a win as well. I'm going to go with 2-1 Manchester United. I'm not even going to question your hooliganism with Norwich City and Daniel Farke. But if you do have any questions about the podcast, any predictions about next week's game, do get in touch. Email us, find us on Twitter at Your Manchester United Fix. And thank you for listening. Have a lovely week and enjoy the football.